All right. Well, it is great to be with you here in Greenfield. It's also just great to have you, Oak Creek Franklin. So glad you're with us. And if you're joining us online, and hey, I want to take us back to the year 1990 for a minute, because there was a historical and groundbreaking research effort that took place known as the Human Genome Project. And what happened is over the next 13 years, scientists from all different countries worked together to map out the entire human genome, which is just to give you a picture, let this sink in, that's 3 billion base DNA pairs over 23 chromosomes. And the impact of that research is just staggering. I mean, it advanced medicine light years as it connected to specific genetic profiles. It advanced cancer research and other rare diseases, like research with other diseases. And ultimately, it created these public genetic databases, which led to the phenomenon known as the home DNA test kit. Now, I will just ask you, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but maybe anyone ever take one of these? Think about that for a moment. Whether you're in here in Greenfield, Oak Creek, Franklin, if you've taken one of these tests, probably the chances are you took it because you had just questions about your family tree, or maybe you just were searching for answers in some way, shape, or form, and you took this test, and I would just say, man, the results of some of the findings, the stories that come out of it, incredible. I was thinking about when I took my home DNA test kit and discovered some pretty fascinating things about my story that I didn't know. For instance, I discovered I was related to George Washington. Never knew that beforehand. I had seen pictures a million times. I never caught the resemblance until after I took the test, all right? So, it's fascinating what you find out from a test kit. And so, you hear these stories, they're just fun, right? Of people that realize they're related to someone famous. Heartwarming stories, where families reunited after years apart, or the long-lost sibling, aunt and uncle, fill in the blank. And then you hear those messy stories, though, right? You're talking Dateline-type stuff. Someone does a DNA test, and then it links them, a family member, to a crime, or maybe there's a hidden family secret that's been in hiding for years that's exposed because of one of these tests. And so we are in week 2 of a series called Messy Christmas. And, I think about just the power of knowing a little bit about your family history and what can be surprising in that. And Matthew, what he does at the beginning of his gospel is he lays out Jesus' family history, his family tree, his genealogy. And just like test kits could just prove to provide some surprises in our lives, the same thing is true certainly as we look at the genealogy of Jesus. It is full of what I would say is messy, broken, complicated people. We're talking stories are people who are liars, people who are outsiders, people who are adulterers and murderers, and even a prostitute. It's wild. And I think that's why so often we just skip over this when it comes to Christmas, because when I think Christmas, I think of the perfectly wrapped gift that sits underneath the tree, the perfectly placed nativity scene, and yet Jesus' family of origin is anything but perfect. It is messy. And yet what I want us to hear as we step into today is that shouldn't scare us, but rather it should do quite the opposite. It should assure us that all of us, every single one of us, has a place in God's story, and that we're never too far removed from his grace. And the first week of this series, we kicked off looking at Jacob, a runner who was chasing after a blessing. If you missed that, you can go on to our YouTube channel and you can catch up. But today, we're actually going to step into a story of another person that's found in Jesus' genealogy. And it's actually someone of royalty. It's a king. And a king who is held in high regard. In fact, what we're going to read about this king is that we're going to read some words that just describe his legacy and his impact. I mean, this king shaped a nation, and people talked about him long after he was gone. His name is King Hezekiah, and the Jewish people often referred to him as Good King Hezekiah because his story was filled with triumphs, and yet it wasn't all good because there's this tragedy that happens in his life that would not only impact his life, but even more, it would impact his family and his nation for generations. And so what we're going to see as we step into Hezekiah's story today is that what we're going to see is that it is shaped by a few key moments. There are these defining moments in his story, and what I know about all of us is our lives are shaped by these moments, right? These key moments in our lives, these moments of decision, these moments of perhaps crisis, these moments where everything just seems to hang in the balance and there's a decision that needs to be made, these moments of joy, moments of chaos, right? I mean, fill in the blank, but moments shape us. And so let me just ask you, what are some of the moments in your life that you look at to go, this was one of those moments that just shaped me into who I am today? Maybe it even impacted your family and beyond that. I mean, think about some of those for a minute. You know, maybe the moment you made the decision to get married, that changed the trajectory of your life. Maybe for you, it was the moment that you received the diagnosis. Maybe for you, it was the moment where you took the leap of faith and you left the job and you started the company. Maybe for you, it was the moment where you decided, I'm not running anymore, and I'm going to take a step to get some help. Maybe for you, it's the moment where you just had to choose the hard thing over the easy thing. What are those moments that shape you? I was thinking about some of those moments in my life, and one that just always stands out to me is the moment that I found myself in the delivery room for the birth of our first daughter, Molly. And I was thinking back to that time because, you know, we had prepared as much as we could to be parents. I thought I was ready to be a dad. We had decorated the nursery, painted the walls. We had put the car seat in the car. It was all ready to roll. We had taken the class at the hospital that was going to tell you everything you needed to know about that. And so we thought we were ready, but we weren't. And it wasn't until the birth of our daughter, and after I had, recovered, so to speak. I'm sure Kate recovered too, but after I'd recovered from almost passing out and I held Molly in my arms, that is the moment. Now, there's a picture, and some of you are thinking now that there have been 2 AI-generated images because of the hair, but this is real, all right? Anyways, I'm holding Molly, and in that moment, I can still just remember the promise that I made to God, saying, look, I'm going to do everything in my power to provide for her, to protect her. God, I'm going to point her towards you. God, I know this, I knew this was a moment where everything was changing. It was no longer just Kate and I, but now we were responsible to raise children. And over through the pages of the Bible, what we see is God shifts the trajectory of an individual, of a family, of a nation through a moment. Our moments have that much power. And I love how Pastor Erwin McManus says this, and I just want to read you this quote. He says, within a moment, there is monumental potential. You see, that is the mystery of a moment. It is small enough to ignore, and yet it's big enough to change your life forever. That's the power of a moment. And that is certainly true for Hezekiah. And we're going to step into his story in 2 Kings chapter 18. Fun little fact about Hezekiah's story. It's found in 3 different books of the Bible, and they're all very similar stories, but 2 Kings, 2 Chronicles, Isaiah. But we're going to spend our time in 2 Kings 18. If you have a Bible, want to turn there, that's great. And if you don't own a Bible, we'd love to give you one on the way out of here at our Next Steps area in the lobby. We'd love to do that just as a gift to you. But here's how Hezekiah's story starts in verse 1. It says, in the 3rd year of Hoshea, son of Elah, king of Israel, Hezekiah, son of Ahaz, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 29 years. His mother's name was Abijah, and daughter of Zechariah. Now, right away, something that's just fascinating to me is what we read, that he was 25 years old. 25 years old and really empowered to lead a nation. And I think about just being that young. I think back to when I was 25 and what I had been given permission to do. 25 was the age where I was pumped because I could now rent a rental car, when we went on vacation. And so I was entrusted with a rental car. He's entrusted with an entire nation. All right. And think about the pressure in that moment that could come with that. But I want to hit the pause right now because I think I just want to acknowledge that I think we're in a moment. And the moment I think we're in is this moment where God is moving, and he's moving in our city, he's moving in our region, he's moving in our country, and he's really moving around the world. We're seeing God just move and people turn to him. It's incredible. And one of the things that's fascinating to me about this is so much of this movement that we're seeing right now is happening through young people. People in their 20s and even younger who are just saying, look, I'm willing to step in, I'm willing to lead, I'm willing to step out in faith, I'm willing to lay it on the line. We see it around here, just cool stories. If you're around for baptisms last week, you heard stories of people, of young people just saying, man, I want to make Jesus Lord. I want to live my life for him. We're seeing young leaders here lead ridge groups, lead students, leading kids. We're just leading. And what I would tell you is if just like a little bonus today is if you are in your 20s or perhaps even younger and you feel God moving and challenging you, step into it. Because the time is now. There's something significant happening, and people. It's going to take people of great faith who are willing to step in and lead, and that could be you. And that certainly at the same time, I would just tell you, is where Hezekiah finds himself because as we're going to read in a minute, he's in a moment. Now, I love some words that just describe Hezekiah and who he was. Listen to this in verse 3 of chapter 18. It says this, as you want to think about the type of leader he was. It said, he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord. And as I think of those words, man, I can't think of many other words I would love to be described by than that. That you did what was right in the eyes of the Lord. And so what did he do that was right? Well, that's the first moment. You see, here's what happens. When Hezekiah first steps onto the scene, he steps into a broken, painful mess. His dad Ahaz had completely turned the nation away from God. He had shut down the temple. He had built idols on every street corner. Or on every street corner, there were child sacrifices. We're talking messy, broken stuff. Sin wasn't just tolerated under his father's rule. It was actually encouraged. It was celebrated. And people had just completely, this nation that was built upon God's promise for them had completely turned their back on God. And Hezekiah steps in. And right from the very beginning, Hezekiah says, no. I'm not going to stand for this anymore. We're turning back to God. He basically makes this decision that the brokenness he inherited stopped today. And he reopens the temple, this place where the presence of God was. He tore down the idols that were on the street corners. He built up spiritual leaders, spiritual godly leaders who would lead the people. And he challenged people to just incredible, like this season of generosity and obedience to God. And because of that, what happened is revival took place. And people turned back to God, and as they turned back to him, God's blessing was on the people. It was this time of great prosperity, good King Hezekiah. It was this moment of decision. And I would just say this, I believe maybe you find yourself in one of these moments of decision right now. There's a decision that you're in the midst of making that will either turn you towards God in his blessing and his favor, or away from him. It's a moment where you can step in. Maybe it's at your home where you just say, look, this is where the generational pattern stops. Maybe it's a moment of repentance because you're like, look, I'm not going to continue to play games with the sin in my life anymore. Maybe it's this moment of courage where you say, like, no one else in my family has ever followed God, but I'm going to step out because I really believe this is what real life looks like. And maybe it's even in this season of Christmas. I mean, if you think about Christmas, it is meant to be this time centered and focused on the birth of Jesus, and yet so often, just like what we see when Hezekiah takes the reign and realizes people turn away from God, culturally speaking, Christmas can become about anything other than God, right? About consumerism and more and busyness. And what if maybe even this year you're in this moment of decision to say, hey, I'm going to take this season to focus on who Jesus is and what he's done for us. And we're gonna turn away from some of these other things that seem to define Christmas, and we're going to focus and pursue Jesus this season. You see, these moments of decision, they shape us. And I think about what we read next because Hezekiah finds himself in yet another moment. And this to me is just so incredible. He finds him in this moment of trust, himself in this moment of trust. It's this moment of needing to decide, do I really believe in what God promises he will provide? It's faith. It's this moment of faith. And maybe you found yourself there before. Well, here are some words that describe how Hezekiah responded to this. If we look at verse 5, it says, Hezekiah, he trusted in the Lord, the God of Israel. He trusted. And there was no one like him among all the kings of Judah, either before him or after him. I mean, his trust separated him from other kings. And his decision to trust God, I mean, it had huge implications on an entire nation. Here's what was taking place. What we read in chapter 18 is that the Assyrians, who were the major superpower of that time, who had really conquered about every nation in existence, they had come and circled around the city of Jerusalem, and they were preparing to take control to conquer Judah and the city of Jerusalem. And the king of Assyria sends this trash-talking field commander and about 185,000 soldiers to the walls of Jerusalem. And as people are guarding the walls of Jerusalem, this field commander starts to just, shout at them, hey, look, you guys are going down. Every other nation that's tried to fight us off, we've destroyed everyone's gods. Don't listen to Hezekiah. He may tell you differently, but we assure you, we are going to be victorious. And they even give a letter to them to give to Hezekiah that has all of this in it. And so Hezekiah receives this letter. And in this moment, it's a moment, right? Because now he's got a decision to make. Do we fight? Do we surrender? Like, what do we do? The track record is there, and yet God says he is with us. We've turned to him. We've done all of this. And so here's what Hezekiah decides to do in this moment. He goes to the temple. He takes this letter, and he lays it down on the ground before God, and he prays. He says, God, the Assyrians, they've defeated all these other nations, and they've had all this success, and they've crushed and destroyed their gods, and yet I know you're bigger. And then we read this in this prayer. It says, now, Lord our God, deliver us from his hand, the king of Assyria, so that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you alone, Lord, are God. Now, I want you to notice something about this prayer, is that it's not just save our nation, but it's bigger than that. Would you do this so that all the world, all the kingdoms of the earth would know that you are God? Well, in this moment of trust and dependence upon God, God hears his prayer and he delivers. And he does it through a miracle because on one night, he sends an angel and 185,000 soldiers are defeated. He wipes out this Assyrian army. My question for you is what are you facing right now that maybe seems overwhelming, impossible, where defeat seems imminent? My belief is some of us find ourselves in that place right now. We find ourselves going, man, should I just give up? Like, am I really going to be able to walk through this? I mean, it's beginning to just all feel a little too overwhelming. What if instead of giving up, what if instead of accepting defeat, what if we did what Hezekiah did and just took it and laid it before God? You said, God, we know that you promised to be with us. God, would you come through? God, would you do what only you could do? And not just for me, not just so that I can, receive the benefit, but so that other people would actually see and understand and become to know who you are. I think about Christmas time. I know for some of us here, this Christmas season is overwhelming. Maybe it's the first Christmas after a loss of a loved one. Maybe it's the first Christmas after the divorce. Maybe you find yourself in this place where you just feel alone and it's overwhelming. Let's be real. It's this overwhelming sense of just defeat. And yet, here's what God promises. Like, he'll never leave us or forsake us. God promises that he will provide peace that surpasses all understanding. And what if this Christmas we just said, hey, God, I'm going to trust in your promises. And I'm going to trust that you will help me overcome this season and this feeling I'm in so that not only will I know that you are God, but that other people will see who you are and declare who you are. Well, I think of what happens after this is just fascinating to me as well, because it's yet another moment, and it's a moment of crisis, because Hezekiah becomes ill. Isaiah the prophet, who is a prophet at this time, comes to Hezekiah and says, Hezekiah, your time on earth is coming to a close, and so prepare your house, get it in order, because it's about to be over. And this wasn't punishment for something that had happened, but rather Isaiah's like, look, you've accomplished everything God called you to accomplish. You fought the good fight, you've trusted, you've turned people back, but your time is up. And so Hezekiah hears this, and the scriptures say he actually turns and faces the wall and begins to weep bitterly. And we see one of these prayers is just this raw, honest, vulnerable prayer where Hezekiah is just pleading with God. He's weeping and he's essentially bargaining with them. God, I've done all this stuff for you. I've turned the people, this nation back to you. God, we've trusted along the way. And so, God, would you have mercy on my life? And God hears Hezekiah's prayer in that moment, and he extends his life. He gives him another 15 years of life, which sounds like yet another great, astounding victory. But here's where the tragedy comes into play. Because what we're going to see is this is the turning point in Hezekiah's life where he shifts his focus off of God. He takes his eyes off of God, and it begins to turn inward. And these last 15 years aren't filled with blessing, but rather tragedy that would not so much have an impact on him, but his family for generations to come. And I would just say this, there's something about prayer that's so important for us to realize, and that is, man, God doesn't, it's not that God's against us asking for stuff. He wants us to present our request. He's a relational God who loves to provide for his children. He wants us to do that, but there's something bigger about prayer. In fact, Jesus, he teaches about it. He models it for us. We read this in the Sermon on the Mount. We read Jesus say, and when you pray, he lays out the Lord's Prayer, and he says, and when you pray, you should pray, your kingdom come, your will be done. He's talking about God. We see him right before he goes to the cross. He's about to be arrested. He goes up to this garden to pray, and he says, God, if it's possible, Father, would you take this cup of suffering from me? And God, yet not my will, but your will. You see, there's something for us to understand, and that is there is a real danger when the focus of our prayers move from God and his kingdom and his will to our wants and our will. And like Hezekiah, what can quickly happen is we can take our eyes off of God and we can begin to focus on ourselves, and we can begin to do this. The way we often do this is we begin to bargain with God. If you do this, God, then I will. God, look at the stuff I've done for you. You need to show up for me. And we bargain along the way. And when we do this, what can happen is gratitude can turn into an entitlement in our lives, and blessing can turn into truly just pride. And prayer can become about me and instead of God. And sometimes even in all of that, though, I mean, think about this. Sometimes in all of that, God will still give us what we ask for, even if it's not the best for us. And that's certainly what we see in Hezekiah's story, because what we read next is a final moment. And here's how we see it play out. Hezekiah is recovering from his illness, and the Babylonians hear about this, another nation that's on the rise, and they send this delegation to come and give a gift to Hezekiah for his recovery, but it's a gift with strings attached, all right? I mean, it is, they're really doing some recon work, and so they go to Hezekiah and they say, man, we're so glad that you're recovering, and we have this gift for you, and Hezekiah receives it, and in this moment of pride, he decides, hey, let me show you just around and show you all that we have around here. He shows them their gold, their silver, their armory, really about everything. In fact, listen to what verse 13 of 2 Kings 19 says. It says, there was nothing in his palace or in all of his kingdom that Hezekiah did not show them. He's basically like, check it out, guys. Look at my stuff. Look at me. And here's what the Bible tells us about pride in the book of Proverbs. It says, pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. And that's exactly what Hezekiah is going to find out in this story, because the prophet Isaiah catches wind of the Babylonians coming, and he hears that Hezekiah has showed them everything. And so Isaiah approaches Hezekiah and says, hey, I see the Babylonians were here. What they want? And he's like, oh, well, they wanted to see our stuff. And so he's like, well, what did you show them? He's like, I showed them everything. I showed them everything we had. And here's what Isaiah tells Hezekiah. It says, then Isaiah said to Hezekiah, hear the word of the Lord. The time will surely come when everything in your palace and all your predecessors have stored up until this day will be carried off to Babylon. Nothing will be left, says the Lord. And some of your descendants, your own flesh and blood, who will be born to you, they'll be taken away, and they'll become eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. Now, essentially, Hezekiah, your moment of pride is going to come at a great price, and not for you, but for your family. And this is so fascinating to me, because remember, it was Hezekiah who had to clean up the mess of his father, and now he's creating a mess for the generations that come. And here's how Hezekiah responds, and it's really one of the more heartbreaking statements to me in the Bible. We read this in verse 19. It says, the word of the Lord, this is Hezekiah speaking, the word of the Lord you have spoken is good. He's not arguing with Isaiah, for he thought this, will there not be peace and security in my lifetime? And essentially what Hezekiah is saying, if we read into this, is simply this, that at least it's not going to affect me. Yeah, that may be true, and we may be taken off into exile, and our nation may fall, but that's going to happen long after I'm gone. At least it won't happen to me. You see, he cared more about his comfort in this moment than he did about his country or his family. In other words, what happened is Hezekiah really went from God-centered humility to self-centered complacency. At least it won't happen to me. Now, I don't know about you, but I can read a story like this, and certainly what we see happen after this in years to come, generations to come, Hezekiah's son becomes one of the worst kings in the history of the nation. They turn on God. Babylon comes, conquers, just as Isaiah prophesied it would happen. And I can read all of this and think, like, dude, what were you thinking? Like, were you so short-sighted that you didn't look in that moment and say, this is going to have impact for generations to come? And yet at the same time, I think many of us have been there. We've been in this moment of having to make a decision, and we've just thought, yeah, it's probably not the best, but it's not going to affect me that much now. I know this decision isn't the healthiest, but it works. It works in the moment. Or hey, I know this decision, it could come with a cost, but someone else will have to deal with that later. As long as I'm not impacted, then I'm okay. You see, there's a temptation to make decisions in the moment without any concern for how it might impact ourselves, our families, and generations to come. And so let me just connect Hezekiah's story to your story and mine. I look at his story, and if I just give you this big picture overview, here's the story of Hezekiah. It's a story of moments, right? It starts with a moment of great trust in God. And as Hezekiah trusts in God, God moves and God blesses, but somewhere along the way, Hezekiah takes his eyes off of God. He stops trusting in looking at God and starts just looking for the blessings of God. And as that happens and he takes his eyes off of God, he becomes prideful. I mean, he's just a proud guy who's now just thinking about himself. And as that happens, complacency kicks in. And what I would tell you is I've seen over and over and over again the story in so many lives as I've walked with them as a pastor. I've even fought the temptation at times in my life where, it's like we have this moment of trust, this moment of decision where we turn to God. And when we turn to God, we experience his blessing and his favor. We prayed and God answered. We turned to him and he restored something in our lives. I mean, it's just this moment of great celebration. There is joy, there is blessing. We experience God moving, but then somewhere along the way, we start focusing on the blessings of God and not on God himself. We take our eyes off of God. I've seen the story so many times. And pride starts to creep in, and it becomes less about God, you and your ways, and more about me and my ways. And over time, complacency kicks in. And as complacency kicks in, we just become, I would say, spiritually numb and just going through the motions, and before long, it has great impact on us and our families and generations to come. And the question is really this: will we keep seeking God with the same hunger we had at the start? Here's what I tell you, our moments, they shape us. And one moment of decision could change the trajectory of your life. One moment of faith could change your family. A moment of faith could change your future. Our moments have that much power. But will we keep seeking God with the same hunger we had at the start? Remember, Hezekiah, he finds himself in the genealogy of another king, and that is King Jesus. Now look at the beginning of Matthew chapter 1. It says this. It says, this is the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. That word Messiah literally means the one who would save us from our sin. And I think about Jesus and defining moments, and what I would just say is there's one defining moment, the moment where Jesus humbled himself, gave up his life for us. This moment changed not only his life, but our lives. This one moment of decision to lay down his life for us is a moment that can change our lives forever. And so I just want to take a moment today to say, will we just focus our eyes on Jesus? I just want to pray over us. And I want to invite you in, even for some of us today, it's the decision to receive what Jesus has done in that moment at the cross, that he gave up his life so we could have life. That could be a moment that changes your life today, but I just want to lead us in prayer. God, I just pray today for your strength in the moment. God, it really is the moments, these moments of decision, these moments of crisis, these moments of faith and trust, God, where our lives, it just changes the trajectory of our life. And God, I know for some of us, we are in one of those type of moments right now. Maybe it's in a relationship. Maybe it's with a decision to step into a sin, and like maybe, God, we're in this moment where you're calling us to fix our eyes on you and to trust in your ways over anything else. And God, would we respond with great faith and great trust in this moment? And God, for some of us, today's a time of decision, or a day where we make the decision to trust in the greatest single moment in the history of the world, where Jesus gave up his life. He chose to give up his life, to go to the cross, to die for us so that we could have a restored relationship with you, God. And God, today's a time where maybe some of us just receive your grace for the very first time, that we accept what's been done for us and we give our lives to you. We surrender our lives. We ask for forgiveness, and that we want to make you Lord. And if that's you, I just want to invite you to pray these words with me right here. Let this be a moment today. God, I want to ask for forgiveness of my sin that only comes through what Jesus has done on the cross. God, your grace is enough, and so I place my trust in what's been done for me. And God, I surrender my life to following Jesus, to making him Lord, because it truly is the best way to live. If you made that decision today, I just want to encourage you to text the word BEGIN to the number that's on the screen. We just love to be able to mark this moment, and to be able to, for you to be able to mark this moment, and for us to be able to give you some resources. But for all of us today, God, we fix our eyes on you. Would we have the strength to make the decision in the moment to be faithful? And God, would we have the confidence to know that even if we have turned our backs, God, we're never too far removed from your grace because of what Jesus has done. And pray this in his name. Amen.